Ahoy lads, Sam here, and I have my good friend JaneWhitwork and somebody I met on YouTube who has become my friend recently, Lukullu. And Lukullu has been covering the Dark Souls servers being down, and that is to say, not really covering anything, but at least you're there doing it.
I'm
And
trying.
I wanted us to just come together for a little bit of a fun video, a community video, and talk about why we started playing Dark Souls PvP, how we got pulled into this niche community, and what is unique about it. Why are we still playing? Uh, and anything that kind of relates in with that. Not sure how long this is going to go, but we'll see where we get to. And I want to start off by asking you, Lukullu, what got you first into Dark Souls PvP? What pulled you in?
I think I answered that question in my Q&A like 3 days ago, but it was the trophies in Dark Souls 3, actually. I know a lot of people hate them, myself included, but having to farm these Covenant items for spells or rings was the one thing that got me to try it. I didn't love it at first because I was really, really goddamn bad, but I improved and look at where I'm now. So I think it has good aspects, the trophies that they require online play.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point there that, without those trophies, you might not have ever tried at all. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, Jane, what about you? What got you first in? Because I know there's many different things that get people started.
Oh yeah, I mean, at first, I was scared of PvP. I was scared of getting invaded, and I played through Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 completely offline. But then in Dark Souls 3, I forgot to do that, and I found some red signs outside of Pontiff, and I started to have fun fighting people with my Ultra Greatsword build.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and then eventually I found the Undead Arena.
Yeah, that's another way I think a lot of people get started is bumping into signs or the arena itself. I think that is one way a lot of people also start getting involved is the summoning signs uh, or being invaded. It's quite a scary process at first, isn't it? You get invaded and to be honest, you feel like it shouldn't happen, right? You feel like you shouldn't be vulnerable in that sort of way, and it's quite a shock to the system. But it can also spark curiosity because it's so shocking and different. Uh,
And it makes you want to beat them. It makes you, if you get killed by an invader, you want to be that invader.
yeah, you kind of trigger uh, you kind of trigger a strong response, right? Either you get really upset, or you frighten and flee, or you want to overcome and you find it interesting and whatnot. And I think people really split, or maybe they go one way and end up turning back the other way. I think that happens a lot.
One way I've heard it put is it's an anecdote generator. So you have these unique gameplay experiences that are unique to you. Only you experience them. And that's something special, and not every game has that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a unique feature, right? The invasions. I believe FromSoft won some kind of award for it in Demon Souls. For being like the most unique game feature of that year, and I mean, well deserved.
Absolutely, absolutely.
When you think about it, it really creates an X factor that would be impossible to program. You end up with human minds instead of artificial intelligence. And while FromSoft added a lot of items like dung pie and gestures and prism stones and that kind of stuff, it really comes down to what the players do with those items that creates these unique experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. Uh, how I got involved in PvP, I kind of want to separate it because I first dipped into it in Dark Souls 1, right? I had played And I knew about invasions. Like, it's just something you hear about no matter what. Like, somebody has mentioned to you at some point that invasions exist in Dark Souls and you need to be wary. And I was playing Dark Souls 1. I first got invaded in Undeadburg by some guy who was running a Darkbeat build, of course, and I just instantly died. I was like, what the fuck? This guy must be cheating, right? That's the initial response. Like, you can't kill someone in one hit. That's wrong. Of course, I was naive and didn't understand. And that put me at a very negative feeling about invasions at first. I was like, well, that was bullshit, right? I just got killed for no reason by some guy who came into my world. What a dick, right? But then later on, I started getting invaded into the later game, and I think I got invaded a couple times at the Duke's Archives and Anor Londo as well. And at those places, I was more geared up. They weren't just dark beat invaders. These were, actual like regular builds, not just coming in to meme on you, one shot you at the beginning of the game builds. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is interesting. This is not what I would expected. So I started doing some of my own invasions, but I only probably got a couple 100 hours out of that. And I was like, didn't think much of it. Then I went to Dark Souls 3. And I wasn't really going in with the idea of, yeah, I'm going to start invasions. And what pulled me in, not quite the trophies, but along that same line, was the covenants, right? There was the Aldridge Faithful Covenant, all right? Everybody can meme about the Aldridge Faithful Covenant. Some of the hate might be deserved, but I do think that those covenants get people into PvP, like the trophies. And I stuck with the Aldrich Faithful Covenant for some time because it's like, wow, this is great. I get to invade somebody's world. I get this PvP experience. I get some unique reward. And I don't even lose my souls when I die. So I thought that was such a cool thing. I'm not losing anything, I thought. And then I got suckered into the gameplay.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention is that it's hella hard to balance the reward against what you lose. So there is incentives to invade, but that you don't make. How should I phrase this? Players who aren't not that experienced are gonna get invaded nonstop if there are too many good rewards for invading.
Yeah, if the incentive was so high, then a lot of people would be invading because, wow, this is the fastest way to level up or something,
Exactly.
The incentives are quite low, but there's enough there in a lot of these games to kind of get somebody interested because you got to have something to make people want to even get into it to experience the gameplay, right?
Yeah, like you get into it for the Dark Moon Blade, and then you stick around for the ego trip.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's something
all I wanted
to mention.
All I was gonna say. sorry. All I was gonna say
problem.
about what Jane said is the Dark Moon Blade. I feel like that is such an important thing to say. I feel like there's many people who get started because they want to get Dark Moon Blade and they join the Blue Sentinels or they join Blade of the Dark Moon. And let's face it, it's pretty great if you're a PvE player because you just go around doing the PvE and then, once every 30 minutes you get summoned, right? I mean, there's a lot to be desired with some of the invasions you get as a blue and whatnot, and many things that happen early on that make it not fun. But hey, it's very convenient if you're a PvE player that just wants to PvP sometime. You don't have to sit there and wait around.
I forgot what I wanted to say.
Apologize for that.
No problem. Absolutely no.
Let's move on to some of our more memorable invasion experiences, if you can think of any. Do you have any that come to your mind, Jane? Something that was so memorable that you couldn't really experience in another game. It would have to be a Souls PvP experience.
Yeah, I mean, early on, after grinding Arena for so long, I started to actually get interested in invasions, and the places I started was Soul level 10 High Wall and Soul Level 35 Cathedral of the Deep. And there was something really special about those levels, which was the verticality that you could really play with. And the fact that you as an invader would have cat ring and the host would almost never. And I remember escaping by jumping off of high places so much. That was definitely an exciting feature of getting into PvP. Because first off, phantoms would often chase you, and they would often die as a result.
Yeah.
The other fun was I fell in love with the mace as a weapon. Perseverance spam when the group is just like trying to blender you and they don't understand that they can't. That's just a lot of fun. You know, you would just start swinging the mace. It was a brain dead playstyle, admittedly, but at the time it was very fun for me.
I believe that. For me, a underappreciated aspect, at least in my opinion, are these happy invasions, these good invasions where you become buddies with the host or its phantoms, and you just sit there for 20 minutes performing one gesture after the other and performing some very strange stuff, but the limitation on the communication, so that there's no voice chat and stuff, I think that makes such things, especially in such a hostile world, so wholesome. And for another example, if you get invaded or if you invade someone who's in a pickle, as a Sigma would say, you can just drop them an ember or a humanity and leave. It's not what I'm here for. It's not why I play these games, but these occurrences are just upbeat and welcome breaks in between all the slaughter.
Ah, yes. You reminded me of a good story now that I can share, where I was in the USA and many times playing Dark Souls later than I probably should have been. And there would be people. There was a streamer from Australia. His name escapes me. I had no idea who he was. He's somewhat connected with the PvP community, but just kind of a streamer who streams every now and then. And I had invaded them, doing as I normally do with my magic build cackles, and I had a hell of an invasion. Like it was, you know, a 3-man gank at Pontiff. I just did very well against them, taking out the phantoms a couple times, but I couldn't quite etch out the host. I ended up really desperate on the ropes after they had eliminated my co-invaders several times, and started backstabbing them off of the ledge. Oh, how should I describe this ledge? You know how there's the far catwalk at Pontiff, right? The far one where there's that corner where you can run around and a lot of people backstab off of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, I think I know what you're talking about.
I had jumped down.
Survival.
Yeah, I had jumped down to the lower part that people jumped down from there, and I backstabbed a couple of them off of the ledge there, and it just was a hella crazy invasion. And finally the host just jumped off after I did that to his phantoms. I guess he was kind of impressed. And then I noticed that he was streaming, so I went into his stream, never having met these people or anybody associated with them, and they're like, oh yeah, we know who you are. I guess I had been invading them for a couple years but hadn't quite realized it. And they're like, so I rewatched their stream, you know, and they're not complaining about me. They're having a hell of a time fighting me. They're like, oh damn, that's cackles. That's like 3 invaders. So I was like, wow, my ego is being stroked so hard right now. But that was such a memorable and wholesome experience where it was like, these guys really enjoy fighting me. They even said in their chat, they're like, honestly, you kind of terrify us every time you invade. I'm like, oh no.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. I have one other thing too that Jane reminded me of, which was when I was first getting into invasions. My favorite place in DS3, still I believe, to invade is Cleansing Chapel and the Cathedral of the Deep. Such a great place to invade. And I was invading there at an SL41 build, and the nice thing about that area is it's so long. There's such a long opportunity to invade people. You can drag them through that level. Things go bad for you as an invader. There's always somewhere to get to that's ahead of them, you know. So you've got quite a long experience, and you get some very long, memorable invasions. And like you, Jane, not the mace. For me, what I got really good with was the war pick, and it's almost on that same level of brain dead usage. It's a complete noob trap when it comes to roll catching, and that's what really got me excited, because people just mash that roll button when they've been hit, and I don't think there's a better roll catch weapon than the war pick.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that definitely appealed to me about the mace, but the war pick is even better.
Yeah.
Because people just don't have roll discipline at low level.
No, they don't. And if the war pick had perseverance, I mean, it would it would be mad good. Like, good thing it doesn't. At least they have that difference between each other.
Yeah, that would be too much.
Yeah. It also helps that the war pick having such good thrust counter damage with the Leo ring. I just had that appeal because I'm like, wow, I just completely destroy people with this thing. But that was such a fun experience for me, and it kept me going. And I think my other weapon, because I made a worker theme build, right? I was like, all right, we'll have war pick and I'll have 4-prong plow. Little did I know 4-prong plow was like a super meta, super good weapon.
As for my weapon that I got started with, it's a little bit embarrassing. I was one of the guys that just spammed the twin ring knight greatswords.
Oh, arcade
like the
pugs.
Just no matter what the situation was, I just L1 that shit. And I actually got some results with it. Not in 1v1s, but in gangs. And then I switched to the breakdances because I thought they would look they look cool, as everyone does it at first. And I got backstepped to hell and back. Every invasion, at minimum 2 backsteps. And then I switched from that back to my original weapon, which I beat the game with, which was the Claymore, which I still use today, which is still my main weapon today. So
yeah, a good thing I think I would say about our stories too is that everybody starts somewhere, right? And we don't all start out with the best builds and the best tactics. Many of us start out with invading to get the trophies, or invading to get Darkmoon Blade, and we use the breakdancing sword or whatever. You start somewhere, and you eventually either rise to the occasion or give up.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to talk about is twinking at low levels. It has, in my experience, 2 very opposite effects for new invaders or people that are new to these games in general. Either they want to become that, like I want to be that guy that defeats everyone in the first area, that just crushes the noobs. The other one, guys, I'm going to play offline from now on. And I think that there is certainly a bad to that, because people that would maybe enjoy the online never give it a try from that on. But I think the other half is still a very large positive, which many people oversee, that people are get motivated to try it, that they get motivated to get good by being crushed and defeated by twinks, by Havel monsters.
You might have a point about that. I haven't really considered that. I've been in with the whole twink build debate over and over. In my opinion, people who complain about in DS3 have no idea what it was like in DS1. I mean, completely different worlds when it comes to that. Yeah. And I don't want to expand on the topic too long, because we could talk about twinking for a long, long time. But I do think you have a point that some people get crushed that way, and the desire to crush people can bring people into the online world and invasions. It's that shock to the system. And my first experience was getting completely destroyed by a dark bead build in Dark Souls 1 right away at the Undead Burg. Like, I would say that that was quite a negative experience. It didn't push me to be like, I'm gonna play the game offline, but I was like, fuck invaders. That's kind of where I was at. I didn't have the mentality of I want to overcome this. So I do think twinking can have more of a negative experience than a positive, but not that there is no positive out of it, and not that it doesn't bring people interested into the PvP system.
I would absolutely agree with that.
That is fun. It's something really fun to talk about, and we all have our own story of how we got into this thing. It really is an obscure and niche thing to get into. It's not a giant community. It's not like you start up Dark Souls being like, I'm going to become a PvPer. No, it don't happen.
Yeah, we talked recently that these games are still predominantly single-player games, and
Yes.
you forget that sometimes.
Yes. Next, I wanted to talk about, and I'll let you answer this first, Jane. Why is it other games can't quite scratch the itch of the Dark Souls PvP? What is it that they're missing?
Well, I don't want to drag Elden Ring into the mix too much, but an interesting thought that was brought up to me is that Elden Ring plays more like an RPG and less like an action game. And
I just want to say, feel free to bring in Elden Ring. I think that is an excellent point.
oh yeah, I just don't want us to harp on it too much. But yeah, like what Dark Souls 3 specifically, because that's where I started, appealed to me with was that it was a 3D action game. It has RPG elements and character customization as well, which, when those two things are combined together, just has an incredible draw for me. Because RPGs generally often have character customization, like you can make your own guy, have your specific appearance, your own character build, and all that. But then the fact that you have really good control over the movement of your character, and you can specifically style on people by doing that, that is the mix that makes Dark Souls so exceptional. And I've tried other RPGs, I've tried other fighting games, but they don't have quite that mixture that I'm looking for generally.
Yeah, I really like the phrasing. I heard it in a video from Amish, I think, years ago, and it was about scratching the itch, right? And I feel like that really encapsulates the problem. It's like you can get games that almost do it, but they just don't quite get it. So I want to ask you, Lukullu, what's your opinion on the matter?
So I think I have quite an exhaustive list. I prepared some notes.
Oh,
so
go ahead,
maybe
please.
this is going to take a while. So I would absolutely agree with Jane that the build variety is one of the key things. You can make such different builds, and even small changes can completely overhaul how you play. And also the movement, the freedom of movement is just insane in these games. And there's so much tech, mostly unintentional tech, but there is so much tech that you can master over years that it keeps you coming back, even if you take months breaks.
I just want to quickly expand on that term, tech. I know some people have different terminology, but I think in the way we want to use it is like there's tech in terms of certain button inputs. It could be a glitch, not necessarily. It could be certain true combos with multiple weapons or pseudo combos, that sort of stuff. So, you know, as you said, there's a lot of learning to it. It takes hundreds of hours to master that, sometimes longer.
Absolutely, and I would also include predictions in this.
Oh yeah,
and accounting for lag. I would put that into tech. So going on, one of the things I also like, especially in the older games like 1 and 2, but 3 not so much, but still, these games can be janky, very janky. And I like to play around jank. If it's perfect, if it's smooth, yeah, that's great too. But I think that this makes encountering problems and solving them inside of limitations, it needs more creativity, and it gives you greater euphoria when you do overcome the the moonwalk when you do a 180 turn, that you stand still for like 2 seconds, what feels like 2 seconds. Avoiding that, I think it could be classified as jank, that you just stand there for 2 seconds, because this animation takes ages. But you can avoid it by not locking on, or by making just a little turn and not a straight 180 break. Then something I've noticed in other games that do invasions, and I'm not counting Demon Souls in that, is that there is a scoreboard. In most other games, in Dark Souls, there is no scoreboard. You do it for your motivation and to mess yourself against other players, and only that. There is not a list of 500,000 players that are better than you, but you are at your skill level, and you look at where you were yesterday and not who someone else is today, I think the phrase goes. And yeah, another thing is that, as we discussed earlier, there is a lot of extrinsic motivation at the beginning, like covenant rewards, like embers. But once you got them, and once you got like 99 embers, it switches to an intrinsic motivation. You want to be the best. You want to beat gangs 1v4. And the unfair is the norm. These games are unfair, at least in online. The host has the advantage. Always, except if he's a noob or someone who has played like 1 week.
I would maybe make a contention that sometimes in the early game the host does not have the advantage.
Yeah, twinking that whole problem. But if it's a prepared host, he has the advantage always. Ringed City, for example, not a single invasion where the host and its summons don't have the advantage. And beating someone or a team that has the odds in their favor is something you don't have in games like Overwatch. It's always, you have the exact same options, and it's the exact same playing field. It's the exact same level. And overcoming something that is unfair towards you, I think, gives way more euphoria when you do it. It just dumps the dopamine in your brain, like all of it. And after a while in games like Overwatch, if you win, yeah, that's great, but it's just another win in a row of wins, or a lose here and there. But to win in a Dark Souls invasion, in like a gang squad, that is something special. You're gonna run out of this. I've had it a lot of times. I don't know if you guys are like that. You run out of the room screaming and being happy. And I don't know another game that makes me feel this way.
Yeah, maybe I haven't always physically done that, but certainly in my mind, I've been like, wow, I just took down that 4v1 gank, and I feel so good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it for me for now.
Yeah, and very well said from both of you. So many good points there. One thing that I think you two would agree with that wasn't said, because it's just a no-brainer for us at this point, is that these games, you can make so many different builds. The build variety is almost unmatched when it comes to some sort of PvP game, right? And you can do this at different SLs, all these different weapons and spells and investments and armors and covenants. You get this huge mishmash of things that you can do, and that's just not available in many places.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Lukullu, you mentioned overcoming challenge, and where you're like learning, and you step into the intrinsic motivation area, and it's like, wow, I really want to take out gank squads. Wow, how am I going to learn to backstab? How am I going to learn how this like moveset swap works, or whatever it is that motivates you? Or how am I going to learn to deal with 3 people being on top of me? And how am I going to learn to switch weapons mid-battle? That's a big step people have to overcome, right? Going into your inventory and changing your weapon. That's a huge thing to be able to learn. And a lot of people are afraid of doing that. And I'll admit, I wasn't hard swapping for probably my first 200 hours, maybe longer, you know? I wasn't. You're not at that level, right? Maybe some people ascend to it faster, but I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on when you start trying, I guess. But one thing that kind of ties into the variety of builds is that you find out after getting to a certain level of skill, after grinding the game at meta for long enough, is that your build kind of becomes your playstyle. And what was so appealing about Meta Pontiff in particular was starting to see like ways each player would play. Like, when do they go for a backstab? What swaps do they like? What kind of armor do they favor? Um, and all of that. Like, what mix of all of these techniques are they using, and when do they deploy them?
Yeah, you make an excellent point, and I think I'm a very good example of that. I have a very different playstyle than most people at Meta. Most people would not use a sorcerer build, and I didn't use one. I think that's something a lot of people don't know about me, is that I didn't use one until quite late into my DS3 career, and then it turned out I was like, wow, I'm kind of good at this, and I kind of want to be really good at this, and I just pushed forward where most people hadn't, and I was able to forge out a different play style that I really enjoyed, and it does become personal at that point. uh, and
Yeah,
you don't get that same level of experience in many games. There's a statement I made in a video way back. I think it was titled, "Why Are We Still Playing Dark Souls 3?" And that video is so relevant. Uh, what I said too was that until there is an adequate replacement for Dark Souls 3 PvP, we will still be playing. And
Absolutely.
that is the truth. Now, when I made that video, I also did not consider a future where the servers would be down. So that is quite an unfortunate thing. I think Lukullu might be the first person to give us coverage if and when they do come back up.
I think it's almost a testament to how true that video is, just because even with the servers down, you can still pull like a full fight club. You can get like a dozen people on the servers just, surrounding a streamer still.
Yeah, there definitely is that desire, and there's some parts of Elden Ring that don't quite, they don't quite replace that Dark Souls 3 PvP. So you are right, there is a real test going on there. Until there is an adequate replacement, many of us are still going to be playing it. In even maybe Elden Ring replaces it for you, maybe it doesn't. But I think we could all agree that other games outside of the Souls PvP, they just can't do it. It's not like somebody's like, "Wow, I'm done. There's no new Dark Souls PvP. I'm gonna play For Honor or Tekken or something," and that becomes their replacement. It maybe does, but we're talking very low amount of people. That's just not gonna work for most people. It's just too unique.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, what's missing from those games is the RPG element of customization.
Yeah,
You can, yeah.
and like you both mentioned, there's that challenge, right? It's not like you load into Tekken and you've got some guy with two summons or two other people helping fight against you. Like, that's just, you don't get that experience. You don't get this weird experience. And I think something else we haven't mentioned that I'd like to bring up now is there's a lack of rules, right? You're an invader. You invade. Do what you please. You want to make friends with the host? Go ahead. There's nothing. You're not going to get banned for it. There's no rules against teaming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's anarchy.
Yeah, they even made a covenant that kind of encourages killing whoever in DS3. They made the mound makers, right? Like, whatever. You could do it as a regular red, but here's a covenant that rewards you for doing as you please.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to say to your previous statement, that you don't switch from Dark Souls 3 to Tekken or Street Fighter or something else, is I have switched multiple times. I've gotten into Doom Eternal for like 3 months straight, which is an amazing game, by the way. But Dark Souls 3, especially 3, the other games not so much, that's home for me. If I make an excursion, an adventure in another game, I learn it, but I eventually come back to Dark Souls 3. I don't know exactly what it is, but and that is why I don't think that anything can replace it for me. There is certainly something that can be an alternative if the next From Software game after Armored Core has a multiplayer as good or better than Dark Souls 3. I'm still gonna play Dark Souls 3 because I've spent 4 years now learning the tech there and being at home there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said for coming back, and I think that at times I've taken a vacation from Dark Souls, but I always find myself coming back because there just isn't quite something that does it.
Yeah.
I think we've said a lot of good things here. Is there anything else that either one of you would want to add, or we might wrap it up?
One thing, something that keeps me coming back is our videos, especially Amish always always gets me back into the PvP scene. If I say play Doom Eternal, I see a video made by Amish or someone else like Chase the Bro or something else, or Fighter, and I want to do it again. I want to kill some summons, kill some hosts. No other game really does that for me. That the community still, like, I mean, it's 7 years, 6 years since. It's almost 8 years since. I think it's 8 since Dark Souls 3 came out, and there are still videos made that make me want to come back actively, and that is insane.
Yeah, that is quite a unique thing, and I find that affecting me too. A lot of the small Souls tubers, I connect a lot with those channels, and I'm subbed to probably 100 different channels of Dark Souls content that are under 1K subs. So I'm out there supporting the little guys. I love a lot of those videos and the unique personality behind them.
Okay, should we wrap it up?
Did you it sound like you maybe had something to say yet, Jane?
Yeah. Something that occurred to me is that kind of the hook for Dark Souls PvP plays into the theme of the games overall. Like the hook of getting into Dark Souls PvE is kind of overcoming great odds, even though things are stacked against you. And eventually that leads to like a power fantasy, right? Like you get to the end of the game and you're doing a ton of damage finally. And really with PvP, it's kind of the same. Like you get destroyed by other players, but that makes some people want to overcome it. They want to become that other player and learn. And that's definitely something that came to me.
All right. Well, I think that was a great discussion that we all had, and I'm really glad that we were able to come together for this video. Many of you already know Jane. I like having Jane in here for these discussions. You always bring great things to the table, and you're a great friend of mine. And I was really happy to have Lukullu here too. Very small channel, just getting started around this time where the servers are down. Might have brought you some inspiration, and you have promised to bring us some content when those servers come back up, and you stress that it is a when, not an if. So I am inspired by your insistence on that. So please check out those channels, and have a good one, everybody. Hopefully we can see you back on the Dark Souls server soon. And for those of you enjoying Elden Ring, continue to enjoy that.